So before my team hides themselves, hi, my name is Laura. I am the Director of Operations and an Account Manager at Stitchcraft Marketing. I am joined by my colleagues Flossie and Rebecca, and we are kind of the worker bees at the agency, and many of you deal with us if you have a monthly account with us. So during the pandemic, we started what we like to call office hours. Let me go ahead and share my screen and I'll show you my presentation. And so office hours for us is a little bit of a time for us to give back to you, to share a little bit of information about a topic, and then to open up the floor for questions. And your questions can relate to the topic at hand, or they can be anything. This is our time to provide you with a little bit of free advice and your chance to ask us questions and advice for free. So you are certainly welcome to do so. You can post questions in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask questions while I'm talking. My screen is in presentation mode, so I can't see the chat. So someone from my team will interrupt me or someone from the Stitchcraft marketing team will interrupt me if there are questions that need answering, or I will get to them at the end. And so my presentation should last about 15 to 20 minutes. If you come in partway through, you can also find this on our YouTube channel. We put all of our office hours up there. So this week's topic is reimagining your offerings in an ever-changing environment. And this was actually a request from one of our clients to just start to think about, with all of the events of the last few years, how can you start to think about how to sort of reinvent products, pivot, and especially in an uncertain future, try and anticipate what's coming up or figure out how to react quickly to what changes. So this presentation is based on a blog article that we wrote of the same name, and the link is here. You'll also find that at stitchcraftmarketing.com/blog. So you can find that and read that at your own leisure. So one of the things that we wanted to try and do is take some lessons learned from the last couple of years, the pandemic, everything that has happened, and see, what consumers are saying. And so the first part of this presentation, we went and looked at some publications that we can get our hands on. Most of them are PDFs and they're available. If you'd like the links to those, I can send you those. You can just put your email in the chat window, and I can send you a copy of this presentation with all the links when the presentation is over. So the first place we went was the 2022 Edelman Trust Barometer Global Report, and we consulted this multiple times during the pandemic. They were great about bringing out reports each year and sort of facing the concerns as they come up, especially since we had a whole new array of concerns. So the first one that they came up with for 2022 is that we're in a cycle of distrust. Given the political environment of the last few years, the existence of fake news, misinformation, it's not really terribly surprising that consumers don't always know who to trust and don't necessarily trust information that they're being given. And that in general, nobody is sort of extending the benefit of a doubt to a lot of people. And we see that a lot, especially in social media, where people are very, very quick to jump on situations that they may not have been quite as quick to jump into before. The most interesting thing, though, is that consumers actually think CEOs and businesses, particularly their local businesses, are expected to be the face of change, and they have confidence in those businesses to do right by them. So we're seeing an increased confidence in local businesses. We're seeing a lot more interest in shopping local and in sticking with what you know. We're also seeing consumers holding businesses accountable. And again, we have seen this in social media. If you make a misstep, they are going to let you know. If you do something that they don't feel is ethical or that they don't agree with, they're going to let you know. And sometimes that feels a little bit like a thorn in your side, or like people are following you around waiting for you to make a misstep. But there are also a lot of learning opportunities there, and opportunities to sort of improve your relationships with your customers, and also demonstrate that, as business leaders, we are all human. We do make mistakes, but how you respond to that mistake is almost as important as, whether or not you made that mistake in the first place. So the question is, how do we break this cycle of distrust? How do we go back to, and I'm not necessarily nostalgic for everything of the past, but how do we go back to a time where people have more confidence in what's going on in the world, and thus things get a little bit more stable? Again, because people are looking to local businesses and business leaders, businesses can act as a stabilizing force. And that is, you have to be careful about how you present your information. And you have to present your information in a very transparent way, in a way that can be sort of verified and proven. Again, you don't want to use vague wording or try and paper over things right now. You want to try and be as straightforward and transparent as you can, because the more a customer sees that they can trust you, the more they will trust you and be inclined to stick with you and shop with you. There is also a feeling by consumers that businesses should engage more on societal issues. And I know every business has its own level of comfort, but businesses that first of all do more than just sort of speak up about events and sort of make a token statement, but businesses who talk the talk and walk the walk are also finding that their customers are more loyal, and that even though you may end up not appealing to a certain segment of customers, the customers who you do appeal to are really going to stick with you because they believe in how you're addressing societal issues. And we'll talk a little bit more about this throughout the presentation. Information quality is now the most important trust builder. Like I said, your information has to be good. It has to be transparent. Really, now is not the time to couch things in marketing speak. Obviously, we always want to put things forward in the best light possible, but we really do want to try and be transparent and truthful, because again, the only way to get consumers to trust what we're telling them is for it to be true. So, and small and family-owned businesses are the most trusted. And I know that normally in these sessions, I am talking to retail shop owners and small manufacturers. And even if you do a significant business, you're still not competing with Red Heart or Lion Brand or some of the really, really big companies. So you are already in a prime position to find yourself the most trusted among places that consumers are going. So the second thing we looked at was we took a quick look at the Deloitte 2022 Global Marketing Trends. For this, I was really looking for what are consumers placing priority on, and some of these things are relevant to our industry. First of all, customers are looking for businesses that cater to them. So you're not selling your products, you're selling products that are useful to them. You really do have to think about what the customer wants and needs at this time, and sort of develop your marketing to be specifically towards your customer. So again, a lot of times we talk about how if you're kind of marketing to everyone, you're marketing to no one. You want to speak to your customer and show them that they're sort of at the center of your universe, and you are trying to provide them with interesting products and services. Consumers want to see a holistic purpose. Like I said, some of this has to do with societal issues, but they want to see a business that has a reason for existing that is beyond just making profit. They want to see businesses that are committed to making change in the world, to doing good, to sharing knowledge, to keeping the craft alive. And we are uniquely positioned in an industry that has tons of knowledge and lore and information to be shared and passed down. Again, customers want to see businesses driving social change, and consumers are really concerned about data privacy. And this affects us sort of in positive and negative ways. It means that we need to be very careful about the data that we are collecting from customers, and we also need to be sure that our data collection systems and all of our data is safe and secure. The downside to this a little bit is that a lot of consumers are being given the choice to opt out of data. So as we saw with iOS 14 and Facebook, sometimes we do not get the data that we once did. This does make it a little harder to market to your customers, but actually in the next presentation, which I'll talk about at the end of this one, we're going to talk a little bit about how you can start thinking about first-party data so that you don't have to rely on third-party data. That is data that is gleaned from web browsers, third-party cookies, and some of those kinds of things that are going to be phased out and are already in progress of being phased out. So we will talk about that, but remember, consumers want their data to be private. They want to have secure, encrypted transactions, and there are some simple things that you can do to make that part of your business model. So when we talk about how you can reimagine and reinvent products for your customer, the first thing we want to go back to is, who is your customer? We've talked about the customer avatar a lot. We have an exercise available on our website if you have not done this. Your customer avatar or a buyer persona is your ideal customer. Now, you may have a couple different buyer personas because you may have a couple different kinds of customers. For instance, in a yarn store, you might be catering to a beginner knitter, but you also might have a more advanced knitter. But other things that you're going to consider are demographics, characteristics, hopes, and pains. Who is your customer? What is she dreaming about right now? What are issues that have come up during the pandemic? What are her concerns? What are her hopes and fears? What is she looking for? Is she looking for an escape? Is she looking to get back to sort of slow meditative crafting? Is she looking to learn new skills? You know, who are your customers? Are they shopping in person? Are they shopping mobile? Are they buying small purchases often, or are they making larger purchases sort of further spread apart? Are they really responsive to emails? Are they really responsive to your communities, like your Facebook groups? You want to think about who your customer is, because as you start to plan new offerings, you want to appeal to that ideal customer, and who they are and what they value is going to help you reach that. So general hopes and pain points, and these are some that we developed sort of as a result of the pandemic, but they are not necessarily to be completely inclusive of everything. How has your customers' income been affected by the pandemic? We saw lots of people see their incomes diminish. You may have consumers who are still having issues with that. You also may have consumers who have more disposable income because they are not traveling as much and they have spent 2 years sort of sticking closer to home. So you do want to think about how that will affect potentially the size of their purchase. Does your customer have health concerns? Are they avoiding in-person events because they have immune challenges or they have health concerns? Can you show them that your store is still taking the pandemic seriously? I know that situations are relaxing in the US and mask mandates are being dropped, but my local yarn store still says that as long as there is a pandemic, there will be masks worn inside the store. So you don't have to take that you don't have to take a hard line like that, but are you putting your customers' health at the forefront of your concerns? Are you creating shopping options for them and social engagement options that don't necessarily mean that they have to come back to your store in person if they are concerned? Remember, during the pandemic, a lot of people saw increased accessibility and more mobile and curbside pickup options made a lot of people, even people who had health concerns before the pandemic, really happy. And you don't necessarily want to lose those customers just because we are now opening up and doing a little bit more in person. What does your customer need at any given moment? And this is sort of a key point, whether or not we're talking about a pandemic or ongoing situations in the world. What does your customer want and need? What is it that they're looking for, and what is it that you can deliver best to them? So now what I want to do is take everything I've just discussed, kind of the basics of the marketing, the world situation, global trends, and I want to ask you some questions that might prompt you to think about how you could change your offerings and how you can sort of reimagine the way you do business as things change. So the first question is, why do customers buy your products or services? What does your product or service do for them? And why do they buy it from you? What is it that you can give them that no one else can give them? What other needs might they have even once they have your product or service? So if they buy yarn from you, do they need a pattern? Do they need a class to teach them techniques? If they have bought, say, a sewing machine from you, do they need information on how to troubleshoot common problems with the machine? Do they need anything about machine maintenance, about when it's time to bring it in. Do you service machines? Do you know someone who services machines? Which also brings me to the next part, which is if you can't address those needs, can you partner with someone who can? If your specialty is not teaching classes at your store, can you bring in teachers to teach classes, either virtual or in person? Those kinds of things are a draw for a customer and also a value add. So they're not just shopping with you, but they're also getting additional information, educational opportunities. You're answering the questions that they have. When you think about how to iterate on your products and services, think about the most common questions your customers ask you. If you have an FAQ on your site, think about that as a way that you could create additional content that might be useful to them, that might answer their question before they even have to ask it. So, are your customers working from home? Many of us have started working from home during the pandemic. I actually worked from home before the pandemic, but as people have moved at home, obviously children are schooling at home a little bit less, but that doesn't mean that we might not have some points in the future where people need to move home again. So do your products, can they help customers manage the challenges of working from home? So customers, people who are working from home had to create home offices. They had to sort of carve out areas for their children to be working as well as them to be working. They had to figure out how to get enough devices in the household and enough internet bandwidth so that everybody could do what they needed to do. We've also seen an increase in people not really able to leave work at work because they are at home. So we've seen those lines blur. How can your products potentially help customers who are working from home and facing these new challenges? So how can customers reconnect? Obviously, we faced a lot of isolation, particularly early in the pandemic. And as things move forward, we may have times in the future where we still need to be sort of isolated in our own homes. That said, how can your products and services help people spend more time connecting with each other and less time connected with their screens? Now, I don't mean to minimize the importance of virtual gatherings and Zoom sessions because they are fabulous. They were a lifesaver during the pandemic for so many of us who remember what it was like when we did not have Zoom and we could not do face-to-face chatting with people, and it would have just been limited to either telephone or literally sort of crafting by ourselves. That said, are there opportunities that you can promote people to gather again? If you can hold classes, if you can hold events safely, if you could potentially move your events to a safer location, like an outdoor location. I have a client who is doing a spring fashion show, and she is doing it kind of at a local park in town, and then encouraging people to come back and shop at the store if they want to. But they can also receive information about the patterns and or place orders online. But she's doing the event outdoors so that everybody can come and bring their snacks and their lawn chairs and watch a little fashion show of, she's a Rowan store, so she's going to do this sort of as a trunk show with all the Rowan pieces as well as samples that her shop workers have knit in all of her new yarns. So that's kind of a way to still have a social opportunity, but not worry quite so much about how to get people together. Another way to do it is to do it more like an open house and have people stop by through the course of the day, but ask them to either, even if you don't have a purchase of ticket times, but give people sort of ticket times or reservations so that you can manage the flow of traffic in your store. So how can you help your customers create and find community that spans virtual and in-person options as needed? We have seen quite a few people develop their own community. One of our clients, Brown Sheep, developed their own spinning yarns on their own website, their own chat platform for consumers and retail stores to congregate and chat. They have hosted some make-alongs with discussion featuring on those chat threads. There are also other services like Discord or Mighty Networks, or you may be able to just do it through your Facebook group. Create some online communities so that your customers can gather and share information and converse with each other, even if they can't meet in person. So when I talked about societal issues, I didn't necessarily mean all of the political issues. I also mean things like climate and environment, and like I said, data privacy. What can you do to make your business more sustainable? So do you know what your carbon footprint is, and can you reduce it at all? Can you eliminate waste at all? Maybe you're not going to print out patterns at the store, but now you're going to place them in consumers' Ravelry libraries, things like that. Where can you sort of eliminate the waste in your packaging, in your displays? Is there a way that you can cut down on any waste that you're creating? Also, how can you demonstrate your commitment to being more sustainable? This could be as simple as skipping the paper towels in the restroom and using hand towels, or it could be more complex, or using recycled packaging materials as you begin to ship orders to customers, or using more tissue paper instead of cellophane bags, those kinds of things. I'm not trying to give you any hard and fast rules, but how can you demonstrate a commitment to the environment and making your business as eco-friendly as possible? And can your products create community? Can you inspire crafting opportunities? For instance, this Friday is Earth Day. Can you inspire anyone to create market totes for summer, or use up their fabric scraps in creating product? Can you highlight projects that encourage them to use up what they already have, either fabric waste or yarn waste, leftovers and scraps? So there are lots of things that you can do to sort of create community projects around being more eco-friendly and more sustainable. So sort of finally, what is it that you can do to make your business more resilient in the future? And that is kind of the emphasis that we're saying, the emphasis that we're talking about quite a bit. We're currently airing the 3rd season of our podcast, The Business of Craft, and all of our episodes are, our theme this season is resiliency, and how to make yourself more resilient so you are more able to adapt and pivot in the future. And so that's kind of, these are just a few hints to that. Is your website optimized? Meaning, can people see it on mobile? Does it work on mobile and on desktop? We have some really simple tools that can help you figure out if that's the case, and if not, maybe you can put some work into that over the summer with your web developer, or we may be able to help you with some subcontractors if that's something you want to look at. Are you e-commerce capable? We know a lot of people were not necessarily e-commerce capable before the pandemic, and the folks who switched the fastest saw the most growth during the pandemic. So do you have at least some of your offerings available online, even if you don't put your whole shop online? Can you make project kits or certain items available so that you can promote those and cater to, in fact, a global audience? Have you documented your systems and processes? One of the things that we talked about as a marketing company is if any one of us, we are very small, we have 4 employees. If any one of us gets COVID, what do our clients do while we are potentially down with that? And one of the things that we did towards the very beginning of the pandemic is we put together lists of all our duties and responsibilities and all of our clients and all the processes that we go through, so that if something should happen to me for a couple weeks, my colleagues can take over and can work with my clients to keep their businesses running. I would encourage you to do the same. What are the processes that you use in your business, and how can you sort of document them and keep them handy in case you need to train someone on the fly, or someone needs to pick up the reins to move forward? User experience and testing. If you are debuting new things, have you let people test them and try them? Have you asked for feedback? Even creating something as simple as a customer survey, asking 3 to 5 questions about how they find your website. Like, can they search for an item on your website? Does it come up in their search? Do they find what they're looking for? How do they like your checkout procedure? Do they want fewer screens? Those kinds of things can help you make changes that will keep your customers coming back. And then, do you have the right people in the right seats? This is more of a staffing question, but do you have staffers who are able to roll with the punches and adapt as time goes on? I'm not suggesting making any major staffing changes, but do you have the right people in your organization to sort of keep everything moving and continue adapting to change as everything changes? So that is kind of the entirety of my presentation for today. It's more a little more theoretical to talk to you about how can you think about these things, and what changes might you be able to make in the future. I am open for questions. I will tell you that the blog post that I referenced, I am putting the link to that in the chat right now. So you can check that out if you want more details. We have a few more examples in that. And if anyone has any questions, I'm open for that. You can put them in the chat window, or you're welcome to unmute yourself or turn on your camera. Okay. I will wait for one more moment, but the other thing I will tell you is I mentioned that next time we're going to be talking about some of the things that have sort of come from this. Next time, our next session is going to be held on May 17th, and I am going to talk about new trends in marketing that you can try in your business. And one of those trends is talking about first-party data and how you can sort of make up for the fact that you're not getting as much third-party data from places like Facebook anymore. So, and the benefits of that are many. One in particular is that you then own the data. So if Facebook goes away tomorrow, you're not dependent on them to tell you who your customers are and what their likes are. So that will be on May 17th. And I will hang out for just a moment or two longer if anyone has questions.
I have a question.
Sure.
Okay, so this is my first time. So someone else who's here, Brenda, had recommended that I join.
Great, welcome.
And watch. So thank you, Brenda. This is awesome. So I'm a knitwear designer. Mm-hmm. And I have created a small membership. Mm-hmm. So it's a paid membership. I have a large, I guess, for me, it feels large, free Facebook group that's about 1,600 members, mm-hmm. and then a small membership that's about 16 members. Mm-hmm. Any suggestions for promoting or growing the paid portion to make all the things I'm doing to give them, you know, we do some of the things that I do like 2 live Zoom coffee chats mm-hmm. during the month so that we can get together, and those are not recorded so that people can be who they are, show up however they are, and spill whatever's on their mind without knowing that it's, you know, oh, I'm going to upload this to YouTube and your mother-in-law is going to hear all about what you think. And then I do an interview once a month of someone in the fiber community that comes in. They get a free pattern from me each month, whether it's a new pattern or something from my collection. But just if you have any thoughts on growing that paid portion to make that all feel more worthwhile, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Sure. So one of the things that we find in marketing is that you have to tell someone about these opportunities a lot before they actually follow through. So we joke that you have to tell them what you're going to tell them, and then you have to tell them, and then you have to tell them that you told them, and then you have to remind them that you told them. And so even though it feels repetitive to you, because you're like, well, I just talked about this, I would encourage you to share those opportunities and share the fact that you have the Patreon on a regular basis. Now, I'm assuming it's Patreon. It might not be.
So it started actually as a Patreon, and I found that my audience tends to be, because it's mostly from Facebook, tends to be a little bit older. Uh-huh. And so they didn't understand. I felt like they didn't understand what's a Patreon. Why am I paying this website for you? And so I transferred it over and I made it a membership, and that felt more like something that they understood.
Okay, so regardless, my suggestion is to do this more organically, so you're not like constantly thrusting it at them. Before the Zoom chat where you do the interview, definitely put something on your Facebook page and on your Instagram and in your profile about how you have an interview coming up with so-and-so, and is there anything they'd like to learn, and to join the interview, they'd have to join your membership account. Make sure that if you're sending out newsletters, I don't know if you have a newsletter that you send out. Make sure down at the bottom you have a blurb about want to learn more. We have monthly Zoom sessions and all these kinds of things. Make sure that is like a standard blurb at the bottom of everything. And I would say also add that blurb to your patterns. If you go back in and edit your pattern PDFs, and down at the bottom say, hey, are you a member of, are you looking for more the opportunity to ask questions, more tutorials, more more contact with me, you could join my membership account. So I would say you just need to sort of put it everywhere so people can find it, and then market it as the opportunity arises. Like, I wouldn't say every single post you're like, hey, have you joined my membership community? But like I said, every month when you have an interview with someone, that's an opportunity to say, hey, I'm going to sit down and interview this person, and you could be a part of this if you join us. You know, and so it doesn't have to be entirely like sales, join my membership. It can be like, hey, check out this cool thing I'm doing. Do you want in on this? You know, and so I would suggest that you kind of try and organically work it in, and remember that even though you know that you promoted it 2 weeks ago and you're going to promote it in another 2 weeks, that different people may be viewing your streams at different times. And because of the algorithms, not everyone is going to see that post. So your customers are not going to see, or your members are not going to see every single post that touts membership, because it's just not going to populate that way. I mean, and I even struggled with that with my clients, where I'm like, well, but I just boosted this event last week. Like, should I boost it again? But if they still have seats available at the event, yes, boost it, because you'll find at least one person who didn't see it last week because it got lost in their feed, and they might be the person who comes over and joins you. Now, I haven't covered advertising opportunities because that's like a whole separate thing. You certainly could purchase ads on Ravelry for fairly cheap if it's knitting or crochet. You could think about Facebook advertising, and you can Facebook advertise at any level. And you can sort of, you can either do kind of a general brand awareness, you can do your membership platform, or you could just say, hey, I have a great newsletter list. If you want to follow along, you know, sign up for my newsletter. And then they're going to get told about it every time they get a newsletter, they're going to see that you have other opportunities available. So there are lots of different ways to do that advertising. And I will tell you that if you have questions about advertising, Rebecca is Facebook advertising certified, and we do consulting hours. So, you know, if you just wanted to sit and chat with us for an hour about how you could best maximize your Facebook opportunities, or Facebook and Instagram ads, we could certainly help you with that. But that's also something you can do on your own. I'm not trying to hawk our services here, but you know, you can think about advertising it if you think it will be enough of a payoff, and only you can do that cost benefit analysis. But in general, I would just promote it anywhere and everywhere, and make mention of it as you have new events. If you have a new tutorial, if you have a new members only pattern, whatever, you know, talk about it a little bit, because if the only way they can get it is to be a part of the group, then you can say, you know, just join the group and you can have this pattern for free.
Thank you. That's
I hope that helps. Sorry, I'm
It
long-winded.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Laura.
You're welcome. Do you have any other questions? Okay, well, I will put my email in the chat window, and you are welcome to use it at any time. We'd always love to hear from you. And my usual caveat is that if it's like a 2-second answer a question, it's usually free. So you're welcome to reach out if you need anything, and we hope we'll see you again sometime. So thanks for joining us.